Welcome back everybody, my name is Tucker, this is Sporting Logically, and today I'm going to be talking about 6 NBA rookies that could already be causing teams to regret passing on them in the draft. To be clear, these are guys that were picked later on in the draft and have exceeded most people's expectations in Summer League so far. But the title of the video says looks like steals, not are steals, because obviously it's way too early to say that one player or another should have gone higher in the draft. But it's still interesting to discuss which players look to be ahead of the curve in Vegas. Let's go ahead and get started. Number 1, Gary Trent Jr. One of the 4 former Duke Blue Devils to be drafted this year and the only one to be selected in the second round, Trent will have his work cut out for him to carve out a long NBA career. Seen as a bit of a specialist in college as a shooter, he didn't look to provide much else as a shot creator, distributor, or defender. In a league increasingly focused on versatility, it was clear he would need to expand his game and keep pace with his college shooting numbers to prove he belonged. Through 5 games in Vegas, Trent showed off his NBA-ready shooting ability while being active and engaged as a defender. The 2 skills that will likely fuel his chances for playing time this season for a Trailblazers team that would like to build off of a 3rd seed finish in the West last year. Listed at 6'6" with a 6'8.5" wingspan, he has pretty good size and length at the 2 spot and could even see some time at the 3 as well situationally. Though sample size is obviously an issue as it is with all of these players, and not to mention that they're not playing against top level NBA talent, the numbers for Trent are encouraging in relatively low minutes. It was really good to see him make an impact on the defensive end as well as on the glass, and although his struggles as a shot creator and distributor remain for the most part, he showed enough to make me think that there are few teams out there that wish they had taken a longer look at drafting him before the Blazers. His overall field goal percentage isn't great, but that's mostly as a result of some inconsistent moments in Vegas that brought down his numbers in the small sample size I mentioned. However, if he continues to shoot well and defend from 3-point range, don't be surprised to see him get some regular season run as a rookie. Number 2, Kieta Bates-Diop. After a strong redshirt junior season at Ohio State, I saw plenty of people that saw Bates-Diop as a fringe first-round prospect with his combination of skill, size, length, and upside. Unfortunately for him, a few injury concerns and getting a bit of a late start on his NBA career at 22 years old brought down his stock significantly, to the point where he didn't get selected until the 48th pick in the draft. Having said that, his 5-game stint in Vegas showed that Minnesota might have unearthed a much-needed diamond in the rough. Bates-Diop showed great energy and activity on the glass, protecting the rim and getting into passing lanes. And although his shooting numbers aren't as efficient as I'd like to see, he was one of the more impressive players of the event when only considering the non-shooting aspects of the game. As a high-energy combo forward with the potential to even play some minutes at the 5, a role that has seen a huge rise in popularity and impact in the league in recent years, his game has a lot of similarities to that of Thunder forward Jeremy Grant. Obviously, he will need to get in the weight room and fill out his frame, along with continuing to improve his shooting and scoring ability to reach his potential at the next level. But that isn't to say that he didn't have some impressive perimeter offensive moments in Summer League. Bates-Diop has everything you could ask for in a modern NBA combo forward from a natural physical perspective, and if he continues to improve his game, he might just be the steal from this draft. Number 3, Mitchell Robinson. Though the first 2 guys I've talked about might be a bit off the radar, I would expect if you watched any of the Summer League at all, you would have 100% expected to see Mitchell Robinson's name on this list. After a strange transition to say the least from high school to a lost year at the NCAA level and now to the Summer League as a second-round pick, he couldn't have done much more in Vegas to confirm his ability and upside as a modern NBA 5-man for the Knicks. He shot a great percentage from the floor, finished around the rim, was a beast on the glass at both ends, and protected the rim, as shown by his impressive per-game averages in relatively low minutes. Most impressive to me, however, was his motor and the pace at which he played the game. It seemed like he was always hustling up and down the floor as if he had something to prove. Not only that, but Robinson was awesome on the offensive glass, and combined with his quick jumping ability, was able to pick up a ton of easy buckets around the rim. Maybe I should have expected this from a guy that was such a highly thought of high school prospect and has basically spent the past year preparing himself for his Summer League debut rather than playing 30+ college games and going to class like many of his counterparts. Robinson has a lot of work to do to get much stronger and fill out his frame, even more so than most rookies. And once he starts getting some minutes against real NBA competition, that strength deficit will become even more pronounced, and those offensive rebounding opportunities will be much more difficult to come by. But that's something that everybody knew about him when he declared for the draft, that he would be a project. But what wasn't expected was for him to be so productive in Summer League, albeit with the same sample size and talent level caveats as everyone else on this list. When you combine his performances with those of Kevin Knox, the Knicks look to be near the top of this past draft class in terms of early returns on the prospects they selected. Number 4. Vemma Ky Luke. Another player that you probably expected to see on this list, Ky Luke is one of the more interesting prospects from this past year's draft class. Despite a 4-year career as a Kansas Jayhawk, Svi only just turned 21 years old in June, which is shockingly young for a graduating senior heading for the NBA. Similar to the first entry on this list, Trent Jr., he was a great shooter at the college level but didn't show much else in his game consistently to attract first-round attention from NBA scouts. Those concerns, along with a perceived lack of athleticism, caused him to be selected with the 47th pick in the draft. When you look at Svi's Summer League numbers through 5 games, you might think that it was just more of the same for him in Vegas, a good shooter that didn't provide much else. But if you actually watch the Lakers games, you would see a handful of impressive moments that show growth from the Ukrainian in his transition to the NBA level. Despite a low 2.4 assists per game average, he had a number of good moments making plays out of ball screens, something I didn't expect to see from him so early in his professional development. Assists are dependent on players making shots, which makes them generally not as great of an indicator of passing ability as most people think, and that is especially true when dealing with just a 5-game sample size. So again, actually seeing the plays Svi was making in Vegas is crucial to identifying him as a possible steal already for LA. Not only that, but I came away from Summer League impressed with his activity level on the defensive end as well. He has great size, listed at 6'8", and even though he isn't exceptionally quick laterally, he did a good job of positioning himself well to give himself a chance of defending more athletic offensive players, showing to be less of a defensive liability than I expected. If he can continue to improve his quickness and round out the other parts of his game, his shooting ability and competitiveness should allow him to carve out a nice NBA career if his Summer League performances are any indication. Number 5. Trayvon Blew It. The second to last entry on this list has all of the indicators of a player that won't make it in the NBA. Listed at 6'6" with a wingspan not much longer than his height, average athleticism, and a 4-year player entering the league at 23 years old and soon to be 24 in November, Trayvon Blew It is your typical great college player that shouldn't make much of a splash in the NBA. All of which are big reasons he went undrafted. But if you can take anything away from Summer League for the Pelicans, it's that Blew It has the kind of streaky scoring ability that could cause him to stick on an NBA roster for years to come. He opened up in Vegas with back-to-back games with 6 made threes each, and finished the event with a sky-high shooting percentage both from the field and 3-point range. Those kinds of offensive explosions were enough for New Orleans to sign him to a 2-way contract, at the very least allowing him to get his foot in the door of the big leagues. Now obviously a handful of hot shooting Summer League games does not an NBA career make, but for an undrafted player, Blew It looked just about as good as you could expect on that side of the ball. He still has room to grow as a defender and a playmaker, while as I said, his age and lack of world-class length and athleticism could hold him back. Having said that, there are more than a few teams that could have used his shooting ability and knack for knocking down tough shots on the perimeter in the undrafted free agent market. If a few things break right for him, he could be the most recent example of an undrafted player carving out a solid career for themselves at the NBA level. Number 6. Javon Carter. Last up is a player that many people pegged as a potential sleeper prior to the draft, former West Virginia Mountaineer Javon Carter. As the 32nd overall pick, he's the highest drafted player on this list, but it was still easy to overlook him among a ton of impressive performances in Vegas. When you take a look at his field goal percentage, it might be a bit difficult to see what all the fuss is about, but Carter's impact goes well beyond just his shooting ability. He was involved on the glass, showed off his trademark defensive abilities, and provided a nice punch as a distributor. Basically, he was everything we thought he would be in Vegas coming out of the draft process. Not only that, but Memphis just seems like the perfect landing spot for him. Although the Fizdale era caused them to move away from the grit and grind moniker on the court in favor of more spacing and shooting, it's still an underlying theme of many of the players on their roster, and one that Carter fits right into. An easy comparison for him would obviously be Patrick Beverley, but just because it's easy doesn't mean it's incorrect. If Carter continues to defend the way he did in Vegas and improve his consistency as a shooter and playmaker, he could be a valuable contributor for Memphis both as a rookie and moving forward. Along with Jaren Jackson Jr., the Grizzlies need this draft class to provide them with an injection of young talent they desperately need, and the early returns from Carter at Summer League showed the hype around him as a draft sleeper was warranted. And that is the end of today's video. Thank you all very much for watching. Let me know down in the comments below, who else do you think should have been on this list that caught your eye at Summer League? If you'd like to see my last video or more just like this, be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.